Hey, what's going on, everybody? Just kind of continuing with our aquatic ecosystems, and now we're looking at oceans, so saltwater aquatic ecosystems. And there's a lot of different divisions with the ocean. We already kind of spoke about a couple in terms of photic zone and aphotic zone, the benthic zone, but we also kind of divide the ocean going horizontally as well. We divide the ocean into what's considered the intertidal zone, the coastal ocean, and then the open ocean. When you go in the water, you kind of hang out in the intertidal zone. Right? That's the mark from the low tide mark to the high tide mark. Mm-hmm. Right. So when the tide goes out, as far down as that tide goes, that's kind of the mark of the low tide of the intertidal zone. And as high as the high tide gets, that's kind of the mark of the high tide of the intertidal zone.
You're fishing on a boat farther out.
Right. So so you're kind of seeing jetties and rocks and starfish and things like that. You're seeing them all in the intertidal zone. Barnacles growing on the rocks and so forth. The coastal ocean zone goes from that low tide mark all the way up to pretty much the drop off of the continental shelf. So there's this major drop off at the continental shelf where it goes from being fairly deep, 40, 50, 100 feet deep, to starting to drop off to being maybe hundreds or thousands or tens of thousands of feet deep. Now with that, that's the division between the coastal ocean and the open ocean is that continental shelf. And that's different everywhere. So sometimes continental shelf is very close to the shoreline. Sometimes the continental shelf is very, very far away from the shoreline. It just depends on where you are in the world. Depends on how far out that coastal ocean extends, how far out that continental shelf drop off is. When you get out past the continental shelf off, you're in open ocean. For the most part, you haven't really been in open ocean unless you've been on like a major cruise, or unless you've been like really deep sea fishing. Even if you're going on boats recreationally and fishing, typically
you're like a drop.
Yeah, you're typically fishing in the coastal ocean region. You might go, if you go out pretty far, at least in this area, like an hour to a few hours, you might get out to kind of a continental shelf drop off, and you might fish at that drop off, but you really don't go too much further than that, unless you're on a major cruise liner or something. So you can kind of see it here, right? We can kind of see our intertidal zone is from the high tide, low tide mark. Our coastal ocean obviously looks pretty small. It could be, 50, 60, 70, 100 miles, depending on where you are, but it's small. But then the majority of the ocean is the open ocean, which goes all the way to the other side of the continental shelf on the other side. So that's kind of our horizontal divide between the three. In terms of coastal ocean, there's a lot of life in the coastal ocean. There's a lot of life in the intertidal zone. When you get in the open ocean, there's a lot of life out there, but there's so much space, right? That's not very densely packed with organisms. You do most of your fishing.
The farthest I went on feet was like the coastal ocean.
Yeah, coastal ocean. That's about as far as we've been on Brian's boat. Yeah. So. And also kind of with the coastal ocean, this is where you find a lot of...
when you went to the beach and I was with Brian Care.
Oh, okay. Yeah. You went out in the water. Mm-hmm. Yeah. This is also where you find a lot of like coral reefs, right? So like coral reefs, when you go into like warmer waters, or like kelp forests are all kind of in the coastal ocean zone as well, which are very productive, kind of like the rainforests of the ocean. And then as we look, we kind of already divided. We have the photic zone and then the aphotic zone as well. And these are kind of the major divisions of a marine ecosystem. Again, just kind of highlighting, we kind of mentioned this already, being a little redundant, but here's kind of that photic zone layer where the light penetrates. And then here's the aphotic zone layer where a lot of other organisms live, and they rely on detritus, right? Kind of dead decaying material floating down to it. Sometimes they'll move in and out of the aphotic zone, or, maybe if they're deep down bottom dwellers, they might kind of have some type of chemosynthetic bacteria that might actually provide the nutrients for that ecosystem. You also can have these things called whale fall communities. Right? Mm-hmm. Whales are so large that when they die, their bodies float down, and that whale carcass can really be the nutrients to have its own ecosystem kind of based around it for a number of years, because it takes a while for them to decay, which is kind of cool. But that's it. That's our aquatic ecosystems, our marine ecosystems. Did you learn anything?
Yes.
What'd you learn? One thing.
That there's a coastal ocean.
Coastal ocean zone. All right, very good. At least we learned one thing. All right, guys, we'll talk to you later. Thank you.